Today we're going to be breaking down the Deadbug exercise, which is an extremely useful drill to teach people to engage the core properly while the extremities are moving, which is something that carries over into all of the other training that you're doing, sports, and even running. It's also an exercise that I often see people do completely incorrectly, doing it in a way that defeats the purpose of doing a dead bug in the first place. In other words, if you know how to do it properly, you're going to get a lot of value from the exercise, but if you don't really understand how to build tension in your midline when you're doing it, you're completely going to be wasting your time. So I want to clear this out so that you can make the most out of the exercise. Now, before we jump into the video, what are we going to be talking about? First of all, we're going to be looking more generally at how you can brace your core and how this applies to the exercise. Then we're going to talk about that main mistake that people make when they try to do a dead bug. Finally, we'll look at a few useful drills that I really like to make the movement a bit tougher or make it more obvious to do the movement properly. So these are exercises you could use as drills to improve your technique on the movement. They could also be progressions of the exercise that you use in your training to make it more challenging so you can get a better core workout. Without further ado, let's jump onto the floor at CrossFit Max. So I'm going to teach you guys how to do the dead bug. All right, let's run you guys through a dead bug exercise. It's a great exercise to teach your body to brace at the core while the extremities are moving, and also get some nice hip separation, which means that one leg is doing something while the other leg is doing the opposite thing. And the thing about a dead bug is that it's easy to kind of see what it looks like and then just do the movement without actually getting proper tension in the core. And that's the big mistake that I see a lot of people do when they do a dead bug, is that they don't actually actively brace. They kind of just, I'll show you. So if you don't know what a dead bug looks like, you're starting on the ground here. We'll walk you through the points of performance in a sec, but you're essentially opposite arm, opposite leg, under control and coming back up. And it's very easy for me to kind of just do the movement here without getting any amount of tension into it, and I'm not getting anything from doing it that way. So what you actually want to do is set up and create a bunch of tension at your core, which I'm going to explain to you how to do it in a sec, but create a lot of tension that you're going to maintain. And so this way, as you extend the arm and the leg and increase the lever arm on your core, you see I'm shaking a bit as I'm explaining this, you're getting a ton more challenge over here, and that's kind of what we want. So let's first talk about the setup, then talk about the execution, and then we'll look at potential mistakes or potential ways that you can see if you're actually bracing properly when you do it. So what happens at the upper body, actually, start with the upper body when you're doing a dead bug, is you don't just want your arms to be up. What you want to do is you want to actually think about punching your palms into the ceiling. And as you can see, I'm getting my shoulder off the ground. And then this is getting some nice movement of my shoulder blades around the rib cage. And I'm getting a little bit of tension through my core when I do that. So that's number one. Number two, as you drive the legs up, it's going to bring your hips more of into a neutral position. And when you're in that neutral position, the bowl that is your pelvis should be looking at the bowl up top. That's your rib cage. So everything is in line. And then from this position, what you want to do is you want to brace your abs as hard as possible. And the big cue that I typically give people is that if you're doing that correctly, you're bracing frontward, you're bracing on the sides, so you can feel like your core is kind of pushing outwards into the side body here. And also you're pushing down into the ground. So my lower back is almost pressing down into the ground. And that little bit of me pressing down into the ground is probably the most important thing you want to think about. A great way to think about it is if I'm looking at you from the side, your low back, and I try to slide my hand underneath your low back, at no point in the movement should I be able to get underneath or see some daylight underneath your back. All right, so it has to stay pressed the entire time. So from here, push up, abs are engaged, and then I'm going to extend one leg and the opposite arm at the same time. I'm still thinking about pressing into the ceiling. I'm still thinking about engaging my core. There's no daylight underneath here. I'm gonna come back up into control, Pause, breathe in, tight core, opposite arm, opposite leg, and come back. And you can hear it from me doing it. I've got a huge amount of tension in my body when I'm doing this. And that's the way you should approach the movement. Super tense the entire time. Now here's a variation of the dead bug that you can do that's gonna teach you to engage or get that core tension that I was just talking about, is you use a stability ball as a constraint to push against, which is gonna help you get more tension in your core, which is gonna help you do the movement more effectively. So this ball's a little bit big. It's gonna do the trick. What you wanna do, you set it against your body, and then from here, I'm kind of jamming my arms, depending on you and the size of the ball. Maybe you're pushing your hands into it. What you want to do is you want to press into the ball as if you're trying to squish it with both your arms and both your legs. You want to take that same breath in, press your back into the ground, and then from here, you're extending that leg while driving into the ball with the other 3 extremities. And then you're coming back up. You could also do it in a way where you do the opposite arm, opposite leg, like the typical action of a dead bug. Always thinking both about pressing into the ball as well as extending opposite arm, opposite leg. Back on the floor, my demo girl, Maria. We're gonna teach you a drill to really illustrate the point of how to keep tension in your core and how to press your lower back into the ground, as I was just explaining. Maria's gonna go down on the ground. And like we said, if you're getting the right amount of core tension, you're going to be pressing down into the floor. And with this band, we can kind of really see if Maria is able to do that properly. So what you're gonna do, if you have a partner, you do it with a partner. If you have no one, you could tie it to a rig and kind of do it on your own. Or this will just make you understand how this works. So if she's doing it right, there's no arch in her lower back, like we said. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put the band gently underneath, like I'm not going further than like maybe midway through her lower back. And then as we do this, if she's creating tension properly, it's going to press her back into the elastic band. So let's do that. So core is tight, pressing into the band. And then as I pull here, there's tension, but the band is stuck. And then we're gonna give it a shot where she's gonna squeeze as hard as she can, pressing her arms into the ceiling, and then extend the leg. And then we lost the tension in the band. And so that's an indication that she could be pressing harder into the movement. And so that would be how you would know if you're doing it properly or not. Okay, we got some tension. And then come back up. Money. And then obviously you can play with the range of motion. Maybe you start with less range of motion, as much range as you can while maintaining proper tension. And the more you build that strength, then the more range of motion you're gonna be able to get at the end.